Hey guys, I'm Jermaine Morgan and you're watching Jermainemorgantv. Today I'm going to show you a few tips to add a little more groove to your slap, so stay tuned. So thank you for tuning in today. In this lesson, I wanted to deal with something I know a lot of bass players struggle with. And again, it's one of those things that sometimes nobody tell you. And what I wanted to do, especially for me, when I first started kind of playing slap years ago, getting into playing a little slap bass, I couldn't get my groove, couldn't get it together, for lack of better words. You know, I would always play kind of the downbeat or play the bass line, but I didn't really know how to make a groove when I was slapping. So it was a struggle for me, and I had to figure out some things to do, listening to other bass players, and I finally figured out how to do it, how to make it groove, even when I'm slapping, from leaving my finger tone, finger playing style, making that groove. I had to learn how to do the same thing on the slap side of things. So what I want to do today is just show you a few tips, some things that you can kind of add to your slap. Some of you may already know this stuff, but for you beginner to intermediate players, this might be some new information for you, and I'm pretty sure it'd be something very helpful for you in the groove. So I'm just going to play around with this backing track, which will be available for download on jermainemorgan.net. I will put the link below. And as a matter of fact, you heard this backing track a few weeks ago on the episode. If you haven't seen it, the church musician episode, check that one out. We were playing, me and Aunt Parrish, we was playing it against this backing track, just coming up with a couple of grooves and just goofing off, having a lot of fun playing it. So I thought it'd be cool to pull this backing track back out to play to it. So here it goes. So as you can hear, that's a pretty standard bass groove for the most part. And I'm going to show you what it is I'm playing first before we get into too much of it, so you guys, especially you beginners, can know the progression. I get a lot of comments a lot of times. It would help if you would show us beginners what notes you're playing and that kind of thing. So I'll break it down really quick just for my beginner players out there, so you guys can be on the same page with everybody else. I'm in the key of E flat minor. So all right, so my open note is E flat. The groove is over E flat. All right, and so my first note is obviously E flat, and I'm playing octave E flat. I'm pivoting off of that D flat to E flat and hitting that octave E flat. And then I'm going F. Remember, I'm tuned flat, so my bass looks a little different. If you're here and you be here every week, you already know how this goes. But for you guys that are new, who've never heard of me before, I tune flat, and so obviously I'm tuned down. My open string is E flat instead of E, so my F is here. All right, so the next note in that sequence would be F to G flat or F sharp. The next note would be A flat, all right, to B flat, to B, and that's the whole groove. That's the whole thing. All right. And so one of the first things I wanted to do is just kind of give you some tips here and there to help add a little more groove to your slapping. If most of you are like me, when you started slapping, you just basically played the basic groove. And if you're getting a little fancy and you're a beginner, you can do those. You're doing a little something when you're doing that. And that's cool because it still feels good against the groove. I'll play it against the groove in context so you can hear it. It still feels good. Okay, so as you can hear, that groove, it in itself feels good. It's very open. You got a lot of space happening. But if you want it to groove just a little bit more, and you just want to add a little bit more to it, just say you're a beginner player, you're somebody who's kind of new to the slap. It might not be a beginner player. You might just be new to slap, and so you want to add just a little more to it. So you can add like the snare hits in there. For you who are completely new to slap and you have no clue what I'm doing, all right, so I'm using this part of my finger over here to get, to dig into that string. And I'm just striking, going almost like I'm going through the string, using that bone part of, I got bony fingers, so yours might be real meaty, but I'm using this part of my thumb to strike the strings, and I'm going straight down, almost like I'm trying to keep a beat with my thumb, and I'm just flicking my wrist when I'm doing it. Okay, and so that's what I'm doing with my right hand. And the same thing with my plucking. I'm thumping down and I'm plucking up, and I'm using my pointer finger to pluck up. Now, do note, this is not rule of thumb that you have to do it this way. Tons of bass players have different techniques that work for them. I've seen some of the craziest techniques for slap, but this is what works for me, and it's a pretty comfortable position for me. I have pretty much a straightened wrist when I'm doing it. And if you want to kind of get comfortable with that, the best thing to do is just kind of go through the strings, playing octaves and that kind of thing. And most of the time when I'm slapping, obviously I'm gonna fall in the natural position of my right arm. My right arm is kind of falling right here in between those front pickups and that neck here. So I'm gonna let my hand fall just naturally where it falls. I don't want to really be in an uncomfortable position. Some people slap back here, but for me, I like slapping up here and kind of getting a more meaty tone closer to that neck. And you can move around. You can move those octaves around the bass. And just keep moving it around until you get comfortable with it. So that's all I'm doing. I'm going through, slap. So just thump and pluck, thump, pluck, thump, pluck. That's all I'm doing. So again, getting back to the groove. Hopefully I got my beginners covered. You know where we at. You're on the same page with us. So getting back to the groove, all I'm doing is so what I'm doing here is I'm playing one. So you basically have the kick and the snare. I'm always talking about drums. I'm always paying attention to what's going on in the drums. So that my drum groove, let's listen to the drum groove. And that's a loop, by the way, by my dude Kobe Straughter. He's playing drums on this. That's actually a snippet of the drum track from my record Going For It on the Grooves and Ideas album. So yeah, that's Kobe Straughter. He has an amazing solo on that album, by the way. This is a little side note. But yeah, so you can hear what he's doing. He's going boom. So what I'm trying to do with my slap is mimic that rhythm that he's doing. And so in that little bit there, you're already adding a lot more than what you had in the beginning. You had. So basically, you're kind of filling in the spaces, and what makes it feel good rather, is when you're locking with that timing of that click or the metronome or whatever it is, or the drummer for the sake of this. and you're locking with it, and everything is locked and it's synced. Because if you start kind of getting loose with it, it's not going to feel as good. You have to make sure you kind of lining up, especially when you're doing slap, and it's very, very syncopated when you're playing slap bass. So what can I do to beef this up and add just a little bit more to this? So now I'm going to kind of double up with my thumb. So you hear what I'm doing? I'll slow it down. Again, I'm going to slow it down again. Okay, and so what I'm doing is I'm going ba 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 bam, bam, ba ba bam, ba bam, still mimicking that drummer, ba ba bam, ba bam, ba bam bam, and that's all we're really doing is you're kind of basically playing drums on the bass, but you're just kind of adding the melodic part in there with your bass notes. And so the next thing I want to do is I want to start adding my pluck in there. And some of them will be ghost notes. Some of them will be actual octaves. And that's going to kind of add a little more color and a little more groove to it. Okay, so now you're hearing a little bit more going on there, especially when it comes to the rhythmic thing that I'm doing. So it's the basic foundation of what I'm doing is. Only thing you got to be careful is, I hear a lot of bass players do it. When you're doing the octaves, make sure you don't overuse the octave thing. So it's. I mean, you can get away with it depending on what you're playing, but at some point it might become too busy. So I would do it sparingly, you know, kind of space it out a little bit. So and all I'm doing there is I'm just going backwards. Kind of got that from Tommy Sims. Tommy Sims does that a lot. Phenomenal bass player. If you don't know who he is, please look him up. Producer, bass player. The dude plays everything. You're hearing basically everything that we've added so far. So you're hearing the basic, and I'm adding, you know, where we're hitting the snare drum. And you can also hear where we're doubling up on the kick. And last but not least, we're also adding the octaves in there. And the other thing that you're hearing, the last thing I think is the last thing that I give to you, is I'm doing triplets with my right hand. I'm coming down. So what we were doing earlier, I was doubling up with the. But now when you hear me going to each thing, I'm. can do it. Use your octave as your triplet. So when we're saying triplet, it's triplet, 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 bump, 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 triplet, bump, 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 triplet, bump, 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 triplet, triplet. Slow it down. Triplet, bump, 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 triplet, bump, 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 triplet, bump. Okay. So hopefully that has gave you something to add to your slap and help you to groove it just a little bit more. And just remember, all it is we're just adding a little more rhythm with the right hand, and it's just paying attention, as I say all the time. Pay attention to what drummers do, and you can take a lot of those rhythms that you do, that you hear drummers do, and add it to your bass playing, man. It will make a world of difference. Case in point, Victor Wooten, I mean, one of the slap kings, and he does amazing rhythms with his right hand. And matter of fact, doing a lot of the hammer-on stuff that he does, I'm not going to even attempt. I can play a little bit of it, but I'm not going to attempt it. But he's an amazing person to listen to. Marcus Miller. There are tons of people. I mean, just listen to bass players, listen to drummers, and whatever you can, get your hands on whatever you can to expand your vocabulary. And all the music that you take in is going to improve you in some way, because it's going to open your mind up to something that you may have not thought about before when you listen with an intentional perspective. Head over to Jermainemorgantv for this backing track. I put the link below. You can go right over there. It's free to download. Thank you. And also, if you want to check out some licks, I have a course that I put together called the Riffs and Licks course. I have 20 of my licks that I put together. It's also available for the course is available on the website. So please head on over there, check it out. I'll see you guys on next week. Peace.